upstate New York has always been dirt neck and always keeping it raw. I aspired to teach a class on headbanging, stage diving, moshing, fist banging. Had a bloody nose, went in the bathroom, I was tripping, my face was all bloody, eating Bart Simpson hits, an angel kid, like a Cupid, smoking cigarettes. And I said, oh, you're a Misfits fan? She was like, oh, I don't even really know what it is. I was like, oh, they're really cool. They're a Nazi skinhead band, punk rock and drinking beers. And she's like, what? And the beer bottle lodged into my face and broke my tooth in half. Jumped up on stage with a shotgun and shot Dimebag Darrell in the face and killed him on stage. You can never look him in the eye and jump on their head. You always have to hit him at an angle. Punk, pow, 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 pop! It's more just like a way of life. Something that I just identified with since forever.
This is George, and he's going to tell you all you need to know. The stereotypes, the sound, the movement, and the emotion behind
metal, punk rock, and hardcore, spanning since the beginning of time for those genres up until now.
He's been running a radio show called Full Metal Racket for the last 20 years. It airs on Friday nights at WSPN 12 o'clock and provides a healthy dose of hardcore, metal, and punk rock for your weekly fix of fist-pumping, head-banging wild vibes.
What's kept me into it is that it's just the music that seems to speak to me. The whole subculture of hardcore and punk rock, something that represents everything that I'm about. I don't know how else to explain it. It's just it's a way of life.
He got into the scene through his friend's older brothers. He wanted to get into what they were into.
They were into listening to metal. And so from there, I was like, well, what is this music? And then from there, it was like going over to different friends' house, and their older brothers were all into the same records and got into it that way, you know.
And soon it blossomed into raw metal passion.
One of the first albums that got me into metal and stuff is Shout at the Devil by Motley Crue. They sell records in the grocery store. And I remember being in the grocery store with my parents and seeing it was a black on black pentagram. It said Motley Crue. And being my parents were all about Baptist church and all that, you know, it was just everything taboo and evil. And just knowing that the sound of the music was just like heavy and tough sounding, that it was just everything I wanted to do with. And I remember wanting that record every time I came to the grocery store.
But where the scene really takes off is at the shows.
So what is the concert scene like? Like, what's the vibe of the place as soon as you step into a concert?
Well, you know, it varies with metal and punk rock and hardcore, but essentially it's all one scene. It would just be the same as any other concert, you know? It's like dark and hot and sweaty. I guess the dynamic that would be different would be stage diving and mosh pit.
Stage diving and mosh pit.
A lot of shows, no one will stand in the middle. The band will always have to say, everyone move up, everyone move up. Everyone gives the stage like, 10 feet of space for anyone that wants to dance. And this is just like an unsaid thing. It's like, I'm not going to step in there.
What? But why? This is metal. Who wouldn't want to be right up next to the action?
You have people that jump on your head.
Oh, shit.
And then you have people that mosh. It's essentially like a circle, and people flail their arms and kick and go buck wild.
But moshing is more than just flailing of arms and stomping of heads.
It used to be sort of a controlled thing where you didn't really hit people. You just kind of controlled your own space and kind of did like the Running Man, punching inwards towards your groin as opposed to flailing your fist from inward outward to someone's head, you see? It is something it seems so natural to me, but so foreign to other people that I'm explaining it, I kind of almost feel stupid, you know? Depending on what scene you represent, being a punk, metalhead, or skinhead, depends on what style you represent in the dance floor. So each genre sort of has its own respective dance.
Whoa, wait a minute. Let's backtrack. To understand what George says next, you gotta have at least some understanding of these subgenres that make up the scene. Let's start with metal, the real bread and butter genre.
Metal is more thought out, more soothing. Metal vocals, like death metal goes like, right? Put it in third place, put the guitars and the drums in front and put that back and understand it as a texture sort of thing. More of a soothing, deep vibration.
Then you have hardcore, which is
metal without guitar solos, metal without the Dungeons and Dragons, and it's more street-wise things like punk rock. Hardcore has those breakdowns, like those dance parts and soul songs.
And with hardcore, that drop is what it's all about. It's where the feeling's at.
It dropped and it was like the snare went pop, and then the beat broke. It was like, I don't even know how to explain. It was like an explosion. It was like something I felt that I didn't feel on the album.
And finally, you got your punk rock.
Punk rock is way more agitating, more crazy and chaotic and wild style, more political, more streetwise things and not fantasy.
In case that was confusing, here's George's more physical explanation.
Punk, pow, 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 pow.
Got it? Great. These genres are represented through aesthetics, too.
I'm getting like the feeling that apparel is really important in the culture of like these different sub-scenes. So do you just have anything to speak to towards that?
Well, yeah. So like the kid with the American Eagle hoodie, I would picture him to be just a hardcore kid, you know. But hardcore kids too that are jocks have a certain specific thing that's not necessarily like your mall stuff like Fitch and American Eagle or whatever. Punk rockers, always punk rockers, but that also has like crusty punks, you know, like squatter punks, you know, like dudes you see with like dreadlocks and dogs begging on the street that with like patches and like punk, you know. There's those punk kids, and they stink really bad. They stink up the mosh pit. Then you got like metalheads. You got like band geek metalheads that are just prim and proper, like from rich homes, band geek and like solos and like and like staring at the guitar player. There are those metalheads, and there's like thrasher metalheads, you know. So there's all different types. There's all different factions of different scenes within the scene. And so within those factions, you'll find them with their different clothing. And then with their different clothing, you'll find the different dance styles and who they're representing.
Sometimes it feels like these scenes within the scene can just go on forever. But don't fret. Metal, hardcore, and punk rock. Those are the three basic genres that make up the scene, and the three to really focus your attention on. Now back to moshing.
Punks, skinheads, metalheads are always like the outcasts of society. You really look into who they are and what they represent and what there is, and then you realize it's a different story. Depending on what scene you represent being a punk, metalhead, or skinhead, depends on what style you represent in the dance floor. So each genre sort of has its own respective dance.
And so you'll get these kids, punk rockers, for example, who have their own sort of thing, their own dance that represents their scene.
That dance style isn't congruent necessarily with metal and going to metal shows and dancing hardcore style. And so you'll have fights because kids dance different because they're representing a different faction of the whole underground scene, you know, which I'm saying as a whole is looked upon by society as being like, what is this mess and what is this melee they're doing? But if you actually look into it, you realize that there is actually something to this besides just what you're doing just by scratching the surface and just seeing them beat each other up.
Do you get into the whole dance thing when you go to these venues?
Yeah, I have for a long time. I've broken a lot of bones, and I broke my front tooth out. I was in the back of the pit, and I was one person removed, and I was drinking a beer, and I had a guy, that one person removed, that guy decided to dance, and he started with his elbow up, and his elbow went up and hit the bottom of my beer bottle as I was taking a sip. And the beer bottle lodged into my face and broke my tooth in half. And I looked and saw what the hell, and the kid had an American Eagle hoodie on. And I realized that the kid wasn't a kid from the scene. Obviously, wasn't repping the scene. He was just like a mall rat looking dude or whatever. Like I bought this at the mall or whatever. And he was just dancing like a goofball and dancing outside of the pit, hitting me. And I knew that it was wrong. That's like where etiquette and everything comes into play.
The etiquette of the scene. That's really what moshing is, just a part of the etiquette. But there's one last piece of the scene that we have yet to touch on. In case it wasn't clear, George, he aspires to, I
aspire to teach a class on headbanging, stage diving, moshing, fist banging.
Moshing's been covered. Headbanging and fist pumping are pretty straightforward. But what about stage diving? What's that all about?
With stage diving, it's something that I found that you need a lot of people to do it. If you get a good tight crowd in, then it's the time to do it. And what you have to do is you have to do it in a rainbow effect. You can't just get up on the stage, turn around, and jump on the guy that was just standing on next to you. And you can't look him in the eye. As soon as you look at someone in the eye, this notion that I'm about to jump on your head, it won't happen. It just won't happen.
And this is stage diving. Running and jumping off the stage onto the unsuspecting crowd below. Because why not?
So what you have to do is you have to blindside someone. And it may sound cruel, but it works. You have to do a rainbow effect. So say you're standing on stage left. You got to jump up on the stage and run to stage right and jump off over there. Their first instinct is to grab, to reach up and like protect themselves. So they'll instantly catch you. And you can actually get off a flip, backflip. You can do some really amazing stuff. The key to a successful stage dive is to hit them at an angle. You have to blindside them. There was a thing that became popular, which was running heads.
Oh, what could this be?
Yeah, and it's whenever people are packed in and you run from the stage and you plant your foot on the top of their head and you see how far back into the crowd you can go, you know. I tried that a few times, and what'll happen is people will put their hands up and you just step on their hands. So it's like Jesus walking on water, and you'll see these kids do this and they'll just run across the top of the crowd. It's amazing. So there you go. There's my stage diving tactics 101.
George was a spring rich with metal knowledge. There's so much more to tell. But this should be enough to get you started. Get the gist of the scene and hopefully spark some interest in, some understanding of, the scene behind metal, punk rock, and hardcore.
Music is really fundamental on who you are and who I am, you know. I think that you can take anyone's iPod or anyone's phone and look at their music, and you can really get a good gist of where they're coming from, you know.
Man, I wanna get blitzed, plastic off a bottle, all rockin'.